I feel obliged to extend my warm welcome to all present here for the talk and book launch of Saffron Swords by Srimati Manoshi Sinha. It has become a regular aspect and part of Indic Academy to organize these programs. Now I invite guests to today's function with a request to come onto the dais and occupy the distinguished chairs. Any program is not complete without invoking the presence of God amongst us. I now call upon Sri Ravi Prakash to invoke the presence of the Supreme within us.
ಬಾರೋನಿ ಎನ್ನ ಮನಮಂದಿರಕ್ಕೆ ತಡಮಾಡುವುದೇಕೆ ದೇವಾ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಮಾರಜನಕ ಹರಿ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಗಲಿಕೆ ಮಾರಜನಕ ಹರಿ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಗಲಿಕೆ ಸ್ಮರಿಸುವೆ ಕ್ಷಣ ಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ದೇವಾ ಬಾರೋ ನೀ ಎನ್ನ ಮನಮಂದಿರಕ್ಕೆ ತಡಮಾಡುವುದೇಕೆ ದೇವಾ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಬಾರೋ ಬಾರೋ ಮಧುರಾಪುರಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬಾರೋ ಬಾರೋ ಮಧುರಾಪುರಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸೇರಿಕೊಳ್ಳದಿರೋ ವರಕರಿಪುರವ ಬಾರೋ ಬಾರೋ ಮಧುರಾಪುರಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸೇರಿಕೊಳ್ಳದಿರೋ ವರಕರಿಪುರವ ಬಾರೋ ನೀ ಎನ್ನ ಮನಮಂದಿರಕ್ಕೆ ತಡಮಾಡುವುದೇಕೆ ದೇವಾ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಇಂತು ಪರಿಯನ ನೆಂತು ಪೇಳೆನು ಇಂತು ಪರಿಯನ ನೆಂತು ಪೇಳೆನು ಕಾಂತೆಯನ್ನ ಮನ ಅಂತರ್ಯಾಮಿ ಇಂತು ಪರಿಯನ ನೆಂತು ಪೇಳೆನು ಕಾಂತೆಯನ್ನ ಮನ ಅಂತರ್ಯಾಮಿ ಈ ಕರೆ ಕರೆಯೊಳು ನೀ ಕೂಡಿರುವುದು ಈ ಕರೆ ಕರೆಯೊಳು ನೀ ಕೂಡಿರುವುದು ಯಾಕಲೆ ಕಾಂತನೆ ಮಾಮವೃತ್ ಕಮಲದಿ ಯಾಕಲೆ ಕಾಂತನೆ ಮಾಮವೃತ್ ಕಮಲದಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಯ ಬಹು ಕಷ್ಟವಿದೆ ತಕೋ ಇಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಯ ಬಹು ಕಷ್ಟವಿದೆ ತಕೋ ದಿಟ್ಟ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲರಾಯನಿ ದಿಟ್ಟ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲರಾಯನೇ ಬಾರೋ ನೀ ಎನ್ನ ಮನಮಂದಿರಕ್ಕೆ ತಡಮಾಡುವುದೇಕೆ ದೇವಾ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ
Ravi Prakash. I will do a small introduction about Indic Academy, who is conducting this program. Indic Academy, we are a non-traditional university for traditional knowledge. We are seeking to build a global renaissance based on Indic civilizational thought by transforming intellectuals and building an ecosystem. The uniqueness of Indic thought lies in the manifestation of across the spectrum of scriptures, commentaries, literature, art, crafts, and spiritual practices. We therefore believe that a Renaissance effort should focus on the entire spectrum of our thought, namely intellectual, spiritual, and cultural activities. We simultaneously seek to preserve our traditional institutions, knowledge, and practices, protect our identity from being distorted, and promote our thought to local and global consumers, practitioners, and seekers. We achieve these through chapters spread all across the globe. Presently, we are more than 30 chapters across the globe. Indica Mysore is a city-based network of Indic Academy. I would now call upon Nitin Sridhar to introduce our distinguished guests on the dais.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have amidst us distinguished guests on the stage, Professor Shivram Malavalli ji, Shri Shripati ji, Srimati Chaya Nanjappa ji, and of course our author, Srimati Manoshi Sinha Raval ji. I would like to give a short introduction of each of our guests today. Professor Shivram Malavalli ji has 32 years of industrial and research experience and has been the architect of what is called a STEP, Science and Technology Entrepreneurs Park, and he has also spearheaded the establishment of SEED, the Software Entrepreneurs and Employees Development, a technology business incubator supporting exclusively IT startups. He was also the chairman of Institute of Engineers, this location, between 2002 and 2004. Presently, he is the governor of the Board of Governors of Swami Rama Himalaya University, Dehradun, and he is resident chairman of San Francisco Bengaluru Sister City Initiative and managing trustee of Malavalli Foundation. Also known as Shiv Yogi, Professor Malavalli is a direct disciple of Swami Rama of the Himalayas, under whose tutelage he was initiated into Sri Vidya, Agnihotra and Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali. Professor Malavalli has created lyrics for spiritual songs based on Sri Vidya. His first album was Nadabindu, Sri Vidya Nadopasane, which was released by Sri Baba Ramdev. He is also authoring a book titled Sri Vidya Sadhana, a Scientific Connotation. On the behalf of Indic Academy, we welcome you, sir. I request Padmavati ji to felicitate him with a bouquet. Our next distinguished chief guest is Shri Shripati ji. He was a software professional and a successful businessman, but due to his love of Bharat and an intention to serve our society and Sanatana Dharma, he has left his lucrative profession and he is now working as full-time a Purnavadi Karyakarta and Sampark Pramukh at Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha. On behalf of Indic Academy, we welcome you, sir. Please accept our flower bouquet. Srimati Chaya Nanjappa is an award-winning first-generation rural woman entrepreneur with her experience spanning all nuances of food production from farm to fork. She is the founder and managing partner of the brand Nectar Fresh, and her unit is Khadi and Village Board-backed rural enterprise that has been empowering the rural and tribal folk as well as the small farmers. Nectar Fresh is currently one of the major buyers of tribal honey from country and has now diversified into many agro-based products like jams, coffee, etc. Her wide spectrum in undertaking agriculture, food processing and marketing has resulted in successful amalgamation of food producers, food industry and consumers. She is prestigious member of National Bee Board. She is also currently member of Executive Committee of the Indian Institute of Food Processing Technology. She also chaired the session Inspired Women at World Hindu Congress in Chicago. On the behalf of Indic Academy, we welcome you, ma'am. Please accept the flower bouquet. Now to the center of attention of today's event, Srimati Manoshi Sinha Raval ji, a very good friend, personal good friend of mine. She is the author of 8 books, including 2 books on Krishna, namely The 8th Avatar and Blue Vanquisher. She is the collaborative author of DGP English Improvement Course, a bestseller since 13 years, with 13th edition in the market at present. Saffron Swords. This is her latest book, which is the first in a new series she has just started. She is co-authoring this with her husband, Yogaditya Singh Rawal. And this is a book which documents the valor of Indian warriors. A 52 tales of valor of Indian warriors, freedom fighters who have resisted Islamic invasions, plundering, and British colonialism for the last 1300 years between 8th century till 1947. Manoshi ji is a postgraduate in English literature from the University of Pune. She is also a poet, blogger, and a certified astrologer. She is an avid heritage traveler exploring less explored ancient and medieval era temples with her husband, who is also the co-author, as I said. She is the founder of MyIndia, myglory.com, an e-magazine that focuses on Indian history and heritage. She was also featured on DD Bharati as a panelist to speak on Goddess Durga based on her temple visits on the occasion of last Navaratri. On the behalf of Indic Academy, we welcome you. Please accept the flower bouquet. I request the audience to come forward who are sitting in the last so that you may better enjoy the session. And now I request our chief guest on the stage to release the book and start the session.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Akanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Duritam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shanti. Shanti Shanti Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Monisha ji, Honorable Monisha ji, the important person of the day, and Chaya ji, who is our most enterprising entrepreneur, who is doing a lot of service not only to the entrepreneurial field but also the Hindutva and the Hindu movement, and all the dignitaries on the dais, and my dear friends. It's an honor for me to be sharing the dais along with Monisha ji, who is an exemplary personality, who has done wonders in terms of collecting all the information across India. And I was surprised yesterday when we met her informally at Chaya ji's place. She was telling about her experience, how she was able to collect all the information, going to each one of the places, and which in this book, whatever the warriors and heroes of India, it is written here, every place she has visited, and she has traveled along with her husband, and she has moved there and gone there, researched, got the facts right, and then brought in all the information. And some of the reviews I saw, and some of them has written, when they read this book, they experienced goosebumps on them, because that is the level of heroism and nationalism each one of the warriors projected themselves, and it's an experience by itself. I would recommend each one of you and your friends to read this and experience the same feeling of nationalism across board, and feel and transfer it to your future generation. It's an important phenomena, because we should feel proud of our heritage and proud of our heroes. Then only you can look up to some of them as role models in terms of their values, in terms of their valor, and in terms of their nationalism, and sacrificing their entire life for Bharat. That was the level of commitment of each of the warriors. And unfortunately, you all know, many of them faded into oblivion, and the so-called historians never wanted to bring it to light and be part of the textbooks in the schools. It's very important for us to safeguard this tradition and safeguard this valor and heroism of these people, so that our future generation will have a true heroes, not the cinematic heroes who will be following in the usual course of time. We should be able to follow them. So with this as the backdrop, if we had to analyze why, what happened, we had so much of cultural heritage in the entire process of the history of India. And even though in some of the cases, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, if you take it, even though it is called Itihasa, but it is an history part of our tradition. Nowadays, slowly, historically, they are proving Rama existed and Krishna also existed. And archaeological surveys, they have found out. Yesterday I was reading in paper, in Iran, in a cave, they saw the image of Rama. That was the greatness. It has spread throughout the world. In Germany, they have seen Narasimha, the idol of Narasimha, and you can see the extent of spread of Hinduism. And you cannot call it as Hinduism, we should call it as Sanatana Dharma, which is based on certain principles, certain philosophies, which is exalted during that particular time. And here I want to mention that when European continent, there are people living in caves. In India, there were a lot of gurukuls. The exemplary education system was there. Exemplary medical activity was there in terms of Ayurveda. And Shushruta, you must be knowing very well, all the aspect of surgery and other things. And we were far, far ahead of all the, somewhere in between, we lost the connection. So here I want, because of the historical reason, the historians never predicted and never shown this in our textbooks. Here I want to read out one African proverb. It's an African proverb. Until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. That means this is akin to victors writing the history of the vanquished. So whoever invaded, they started writing our history. And obviously it is a biased situation. They will be projecting their valor, their thing. And unfortunately we fall into that trap, because we are all educated in the Western system. Whatever the Western system say, we believe that that is the superior thing. than our own culture and our own tradition and our own Sanatana Dharma and our own Upanishads and Vedanta and also Vedas. So if you look at that, we should revive this cultural pride in us so that our future generation will start thinking first Indian and then Sanatana Dharmis who have highest cultural heritage in the world. And this is the situation we should pass it on to our future generation. And I thank Manoshi ji for having brought out this aspect of Indianness in terms of heroism, valor, and greatness of nationalism, so that this book will be a precursor for future generation to feel pride of our culture and our heritage. And in this, I was suggesting to Manoshi ji that there is a need for visiting each of the states and find out in each state who are all the warriors, who are all the heroes, who are all the people who protected India, protected their own province, protected their own civilization and culture, even on harsh conditions, in harsh conditions. For one example is Abbaka. Some of you might not be knowing it. She drove Portuguese away from her kingdom 6 times. And she was able to protect their culture so well. So like that, there are several heroes and heroines. They are available. So if it is possible to find out in each state, because if you are a Karnataka person, you will be feeling proud to associate yourself with the hero of that state. So if that is done, state-wise booklet, if it is brought in, and a collective, and pick some of the important aspect, some great people, and create a final book, which she has already done, and bring out this concept. And another thing I just wanted to mention here is, if you wait for the government, even the intentions are good. If the government wants to implement in all the schools, all the textbook, if it has to be changed, then it takes a lot of time, because there is a lot of resistance from the so-called pseudo-intellectuals and pseudo-seculars who will be creating a lot of problem for that to. But intentions are good. The government's intentions are good, but it takes time for them to implement. Instead of that, make it a national movement, people's movement, and create in each school a traditional competition with this book as the basis, and create competition among students in terms of oratory skills on those subjects, or writing skills in terms of competition of essays and discussions group about the valor and the greatness of Indian heroes. If that is done, that itself that is stronger than bringing into the textbook, and some might read and some might not read that, because it is an exam where you are 40%, if you are able to cover, you will be able to pass. You will not be able to go through all the subjects that are there. So in that context, I would urge all the parents and the teachers and the owners of the schools to implement this in an ad hoc basis and make it a national movement, so that the future generation feel proud of their tradition and they hold their head high and move with great respect for themselves. With this, I congratulate Manoshi ji again and make sure her efforts and the future publications reachable to the common man, and this becomes a tradition and a byword in all the family, that these books are available with each of the family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening words and making us feel proud about our Sanatana Dharma. And I hope Manoshi ji will take some of his inputs and state-wise this one also. And also to the teachers, he has given some inputs. I hope they will also take care of it. I now call upon Shripati ji to talk a few words and enlighten us.
ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಿರಿಯರೇ ಮತ್ತು ವೇದಿಕೆ ಕೆಳಗಿರುವಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಿರಿಯರೇ, ತಾಯಂದಿರೇ, ಇದೊಂದು ವಿಶೇಷ ಸಂದರ್ಭ. ನಿನ್ನೆ ಅವರ ಜೊತೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಬಯಸ್ತೇನೆ. ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಜನರನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಒಂದು 3 ಬ್ರಾಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಂತೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊದಲನೆಯ ಗುಂಪು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಂತೆ. ಏನಂದರೆ, ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಮಾರುಕಟ್ಟೆ, ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಜೀವನ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ. ದ ಹೋಲ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್, ಲೈಫ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡೋರು ಅಮೇರಿಕಾ, ಯುರೋಪಿಯನ್ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೈರಿಂಗ್, ಫೈರಿಂಗ್, ಬಾಡಿ ಶಾಪಿಂಗ್ ಈ ಥರದ ಪದಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಗುಂಪು ಇದೆಯಂತೆ, ಆ ಗುಂಪು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಂತೆ, ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಯುದ್ಧ ಭೂಮಿ, ಹಾಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಜೀವನ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಅಂದರೆ ಯುದ್ಧ. ದ ಹೋಲ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಬ್ಯಾಟಲ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್, ಲೈಫ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಬ್ಯಾಟಲ್ ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರಂತೆ. ಅವರು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಹೊಡಿಬೇಕು, ಬಡಿಬೇಕು, ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಮೇಲುಗೈಯನ್ನು ಸಾಧಿಸಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದರೆ ನಾನು ಜೀವನ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಆ ರೀತಿಯ ನಂಬಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋರು ಇಸ್ಲಾಮಿಕ್ ದೇಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸಿಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರವರೇ ಹೊಡೆದಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಡ್ದಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸಾಯ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಈ 3ನೇ ಗುಂಪು ಒಂದಿದೆ. ಆ 3ನೇ ಗುಂಪು ಯಾವ ಥರ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂಥ ಜನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಕುಟುಂಬ. ಹಾಗಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಜೀವನ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಜೀವನ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ತತ್ವ, ಆದರ್ಶ. ದ ಹೋಲ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ, ಲೈಫ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಫಿಲಾಸಫಿ. ಆ ತತ್ವ ಆದರ್ಶವನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನದ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯನ್ನು ರೂಪಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋರು. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಮ್ಮ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ದೇಶದ ಮೇಲೂ ದಂಡೆತ್ತಿ ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ಹೆಗ್ಗಳಿಕೆಯಿಂದ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವೇ ನಮ್ಮದು, ಒಂದು ಕುಟುಂಬ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕುಟುಂಬದ ಸದಸ್ಯರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವೇನು ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಏನು? ಇದೇ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರು ಚಿಕಾಗೋದ ಅಮೇರಿಕಾದಲ್ಲಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬ್ರದರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಮೇರಿಕಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ಈ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನೇ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದರು. ವಸುದೈವ ಕುಟುಂಬಕಂ, ಇಡೀ ವಿಶ್ವವೇ ಒಂದು ಕುಟುಂಬ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮಾತಿಗೆ ಬನ್ನಿ ಅಂತ ಕರೆದಾಗ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಇನ್ನು ಮುಗೀತು, ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ಬಂದು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಉಂಟು, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ಅವರೇ ಬಂದು ಎದ್ದು ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆಯಿಂದ ಸಂಜೆವರೆಗೂ ಜನ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿ ಸಾಕಾಗೋಗಿತ್ತು. ಇನ್ನು ಯಾವಾಗ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾರಪ್ಪ ಇದನ್ನು ಅಂತ. ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ಅದೇ ಥರ ಕೂತಿದ್ದೀರಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನು ಯಾವಾಗ ಭಾಷಣ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತಾರೋ ಅಂತ, ಆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಜನ ಕೂತಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರು ಎದ್ದು ನಿಂತು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಅವ್ರು ಎದ್ದು ನಿಂತು ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬ್ರದರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಮೇರಿಕಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ ಕೂಡಲೇ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಎದ್ದು ನಿಂತು 2 ನಿಮಿಷ ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆ ತಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಉಲ್ಲೇಖ ಇದೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೇನು ವಿಶೇಷ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆಯಿಂದ ಸಂಜೆವರೆಗೂ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನದೇ ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠ, ನಾನೇ ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ವಿಷಯ ಇತ್ತು, ದ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಐ. ಆದರೆ ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಬೇರೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಬೇರೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ನನ್ನ ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮಂದಿರು, ಅಕ್ಕ ತಂಗಿಯರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ದ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವಿ ಅದಿತ್ತು. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಈ ವಸುದೈವ ಕುಟುಂಬಕಂ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನು ತುಂಬ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮವಾಗಿ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದರು. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಜನ ಎದ್ದು ನಿಂತು ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆ ತಟ್ಟಿದರು. ಈ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಇಂತಹ ಫಿಲಾಸಫಿಯನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಬದುಕ್ತಾ ಇರುವಾಗ ನಾವು ಯಾರ ಮೇಲೂ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಯಾಕೆ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಈ 2ನೇ ಗುಂಪು ಹೇಳಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ, ಆ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಇರೋರು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಿಡೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಸದೆ ಬಡಿಬೇಕು, ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಮೇಲುಗೈಯನ್ನು ಸಾಧಿಸಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಜೀವನ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಂಬಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋರಾದ್ರಿಂದ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ದಬ್ಬಾಳಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸಂಘರ್ಷವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಸೋಲಿನ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಅಂತ ಇತಿಹಾಸಕಾರರು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ನವರು ಬರೆದಿರೋದು. ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ನಮಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಭಿಮಾನವನ್ನು ತಂದು ಕೊಡದೇ ಇರುವಂಥ ಇತಿಹಾಸವನ್ನು ಇವರಿಗೆ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇವರು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ತಲೆ ತಗ್ಗಿಸಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಆವಾಗ ನಾವು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಇವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ದಬ್ಬಾಳಿಕೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಆಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಹಾಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮದು ಸೋಲಿನ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೇ ಪಕ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೂ ಈ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ 85% ಹಿಂದೂಗಳು ಇರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತಾನೇ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಇಸ್ಲಾಮಿಕ್ ದೇಶ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು, ಇಲ್ಲ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು. ಆದರೆ ಈಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಮೂಲೆ ಮೂಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದೂಗಳು ಉನ್ನತ ಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮದು ಸೋಲಿನ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಸಂಘರ್ಷದ ಇತಿಹಾಸ. ನಾವು ಕೆಲವು ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೋತಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಬೇರೆ ವಿಷಯ. ಆದರೆ ಸಂಘರ್ಷವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇದು ನಿಜವಾದ ಇತಿಹಾಸ. ಇದನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಪಠ್ಯಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಆದರೆ ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ತುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣದ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ. ಈಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ನ ಟೈಗರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಆದರೆ ಶಿವಾಜಿನ ಬೆಟ್ಟದ ಇಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮದಾಂಧ, ಅವನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ನಾವು ಟೈಗರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ? ಖಂಡಿತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು. ಅಕ್ಬರ್ ದಿ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ, ಆದರೆ ರಾಣಾ ಪ್ರತಾಪ್ ಸಿಂಹ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಕ್ಬರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಅವನು ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶವನ್ನು ಇನ್ವೇಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದವನು, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಮೇಲೆ ಆಕ್ರಮಣ ಮಾಡಿದವನು ಹೇಗೆ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಅಂತ ನನಗಿನ್ನೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಥರದ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾನಸಿಕತೆಯನ್ನು, ನಮ್ಮ ಆತ್ಮವಿಶ್ವಾಸವನ್ನು ಕುಗ್ಗಿಸುವಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಂಥ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಫಿಲಾಸಫಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗಟ್ಟಿಯಾಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ಇನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ಸಂಘರ್ಷವನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಹಿಂದೂ ಸಮಾಜ ಇದನ್ನು ಮುಂದಿನ ಪೀಳಿಗೆಗೆ ಕೊಡುವಂಥ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಹಿಂದೆ ರಾಜರು ಮಹಾರಾಜರ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋರು, ಆನೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋರು, ಒಂಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋರು, ಕುದುರೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋರು. ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ವೈರಿ ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಮುಂದೆ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅವರ ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆದರೆ ಈಗ ಒಂದು 5th ಕಾಲಮ್ ಒಂದಿದೆ. ಅದೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ನಮಗೆ ವೈರಿ ಕಣ್ಮುಂದೆ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ನಾವು ಯುದ್ಧ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬರಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಅದೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದರೆ ಮತಾಂತರ, ಭಯೋತ್ಪಾದನೆ, ಲವ್ ಜಿಹಾದ್, ಏನು ಬೇಕಾರಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಇನ್ನೂ ನಡೀತಾನೇ ಇದೆ ಯುದ್ಧಗಳು. ಆದರೆ ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಎಚ್ಚರಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ವಹಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಇತಿಹಾಸ, ನಿಜವಾದ ಇತಿಹಾಸದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಆತ್ಮವಿಶ್ವಾಸ, ಹೆಗ್ಗಳಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ತಂದು ಕೊಡುವಂಥ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇರುವಾಗ ಈ ಮನೋಶಿ ಅವರು ಇಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಬರೆದು ನಾವು ಕೃತಾರ್ಥರಾಗಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ. ಏಕೆಂತಂದರೆ ಇಂಥ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಜನರಿಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಆತ್ಮವಿಶ್ವಾಸ, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗೌರವ, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗೌರವ, ಅದನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸಿ ಬೆಳೆಸಿ ಮುಂದಿನ ಪೀಳಿಗೆ ಕೊಡುವಂಥ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನ್ನ ನಂಬಿಕೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದಿವಸ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಸಣ್ಣ ಪ್ರಮಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಜನ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಮಹತ್ವವನ್ನು ತಂದುಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಫಿಲಾಸಫಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಎಚ್ಚರಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ವಹಿಸಬೇಕು, ನಂಬಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಏನೇನೋ ನೂರಾರು ದೇವರುಗಳಿದೆ, ಯಾರನ್ನು ನಾವು ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳುವಂಥವ್ರು ಏನೇನೋ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದರೆ 4 ಅಂಶ. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಎಚ್ಚರಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ವಹಿಸಬೇಕು. ಯಾಕೆಂತಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಮೊದಲು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ಶ್ರಮಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಯಮ ಇದೆ, ನಿಯಮ ಇದೆ, ಯೋಗ ಇದೆ, ಆಸನಗಳು ಏನೇನೋ ಇದೆ. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನ ವ್ಯಷ್ಟಿ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆದರೆ ಅದರಿಂದ ಏನು ಲಾಭ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆದರೆ ಅದರಿಂದ ಸಮಾಜ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಸಮಷ್ಟಿ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಅದಾದರೆ ಏನು, ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಸಮಾಜ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆದರೆ ಏನು ಲಾಭ ಅಂತ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಪ್ರಾಣಿ, ಪಕ್ಷಿ, ಮರ, ಗಿಡ, ಅದು ವಾಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲವೂ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅರ್ಥ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಏನು ಲಾಭ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಕೇಳಿದರೆ ಪರಮೇಷ್ಟಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಂದರೆ ಪರಮ ತತ್ವವನ್ನು ನಾವು ಅರ್ಥಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅರ್ಹರಾಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಅಣಿ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದನ್ನು ಆ ಯೋಗ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ನಾವು ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದೇ ನಿಜವಾದ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನದ ಲಕ್ಷಣ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಪೂರಕ. ಮೊದಲು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಅದರಿಂದಾಗಿ ಸಮಾಜ ವಿಕಾಸ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಪರಿಸರದಲ್ಲೂ ವಿಕಾಸವನ್ನು ಕಾಣ್ಬೋದು. ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಮಾತ್ಮ ತತ್ವವನ್ನು ಕಂಡುಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಅಣಿಯಾಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದು ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಪೂರಕ, ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಜಾಮಿಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಸ್ಪೈರಲ್ ಅಂತ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ವಸುದೈವ ಕುಟುಂಬಕಂ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು. ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯಿಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗಿ ಇಡೀ ಪರಮಾತ್ಮವನ್ನೇ ಆವರಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಸ್ಪೈರಲ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಆದರೆ ಪಾಶ್ಚಾತ್ಯ ಚಿಂತನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವರು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ನಾನಿರೋದೇ ಪರಿಸರ ಇರೋದೇ ನನಗೋಸ್ಕರ, ಸಮಾಜ ಇರೋದೇ ನನಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಶೋಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದರಿಂದಾಗಿ ಅದು ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ಅಂತ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಮಧ್ಯ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ, ಅವನ ಸುತ್ತ ಸಮಾಜ ಇದೆ, ಸುತ್ತ ಪರಿಸರ ಇದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನನಗೆ ಅಂತ ಅವನು ಭಾವಿಸ್ತಾನೆ. ಅದಾಗಬಾರ್ದು, ಸ್ಪೈರಲ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ವಸುದೈವ ಕುಟುಂಬಕಂ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಭಾವನೆಯನ್ನು ತಂದುಕೊಡುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಆಗುವಂಥ ಆನ್ಸ್ಲಾಟ್, ಇವೆರಡನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮೆಟ್ಟಿ ನಿಂತು ನಾವು ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಇದನ್ನು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಅಂಥ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬರೆದಿದೆ. ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹರ್ಷವನ್ನು ತಂದಿದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಬರೆದಂತಹ ನಮೋಶಿಯವರಿಗೆ ಭಗವಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚೆಚ್ಚು ಈ ಥರದ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬರೆಯೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರೇರಣೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡಲಿ. ಅವರ ಆಯುಸ್ಸು ಆರೋಗ್ಯ ಎಲ್ಲ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರಲಿ. ಅವರು ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕೊಡುಗೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡುವಂತಾಗಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಷ್ಟು ಮಾತಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನನಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ನನ್ನ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Thank you, Shripati ji. You have very beautifully explained three categories of people and how we belong to the third category, and how Indians believe in instead of I, believe in we, and you have beautifully explained. Thank you very much, sir. And now I call upon Srimati Chaya Nanjapa to talk a few words.
Shivaram ji, Shripati Anna, Manoshi ji, Padmavati ji, Nitin ji, Ashok ji, and Amma, whom I respect a lot, she is there too, and Manoj ji, I can see him there. So it is, in fact, after you heard people whom I really look up to and inspire, after you heard them speak, I don't think I would like, it is good on my part to take your time, because I think all of us should give more time for Manoshi ji on her journey and the experiences that she had, the challenges to come up with a book like this. And from my part, all I can say is that it is people like her who are letting the world know how our history books have distorted facts to make heroes out of villains. I think it is time we be extremely proud of what we are. I'm talking of, I heard Shripati Anna. I come with a Rashtriya Swayamsevak background. When Shripati Anna spoke now, and he said of Sanatana Dharma, I can say one aspect. Wherever you are, I think we can also contribute in a small way and change perceptions. We assume and presume that we may not be able to do that. I will not agree on it. As a speaker at the South Asian Women Development Forum in Turkmenistan, I agreed to go there because my dharma says Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It preaches on that the world is a family. I went to Turkmenistan to inspire women from Afghanistan and speak to them on entrepreneurship. What I did, before I started my talk, I said to them at Reka, Regional Economic Affairs of Afghanistan, where you have all the people from the Islamic countries, I said, I am here because my dharma has taught me on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. They were stunned. But I think each one of us, somewhere or the other, can change perceptions. Today, as I travel wherever places I am, I'm also a resource person for a few organizations. When I go there and speak, and when they say about my social entrepreneurship, I say, if you find good qualities in me, well, I owe it to the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, where you have wrong notions about the organization. Similarly, our dharma is being taken for a ride because we were ruled by people and later by parties who distorted facts. Here, we need to thank enormously Manoshi ji. She's a friend of mine. Today, social media, we need to really be thankful to social media. Again, it depends on how you utilize it. Many of them, today, they have become more closer than a blood connection could be. I think similar thinking can make families. And this is what we have become. And that's how I've got very dear friends like Manoshi and many from across the globe. Herewith, wishing her the very best in all her endeavors and hoping that she will inspire people like all us to take such things forward and contribute back to our dharma. And today we are amidst a materialistic world. I should also tell you, she quit her high-profile corporate career to give back to our dharma. I think we should also look beyond this world which is currently exists, where we are more into, competing for all the wrong reasons, and find real inner happiness too. Thanks a lot. It's been such a pleasure being amidst you all. Namaste.
Thank you, Chaya ji. You have very beautifully put that wherever we are, whatever we are, we can do our bit to the society for our dharma. Thank you. Now I would request Manoshi ji to take up the dais and give your presentation. We'll all move down. Yeah, thank you.
Shivaram, Professor Shivaram Mallavalli ji, respected Sripati ji, my dear Chaya Nanjappa ji, Nitin Sridhar ji, Padmavati ji, Ashok ji, Rajappa ji, and my family of dharmic warriors here, and my fellow Bharatvasis. I am so privileged to, like I stayed at Chayaji's place. I am her guest in Mysuru. I felt honored and privileged to meet around 30 dharmic warriors who have been selflessly working for the cause of our dharma since several years. And the bonding that all the warriors, like the bonding is more than a family. It's more than a blood relations family bonding. So like it inspired me, motivated me. And I would be looking forward towards such connections in the future so that collectively we can work further for our dharma. I would like to thank Indic Academy, my mentor Sri Harikiran Badlamani ji, for providing me an opportunity to present a talk on saffron swords in this ancient city of Bharat. The antiquity of Mysuru dates back to thousands of years. It is at this place that Devi Shakti slayed Mahisasura. And this was the place that several dynasties ruled as a part of their kingdom, right from the Cholas, Gangas, Hoysalas, and the latest by the Wadiyars. When we speak about the Cholas, their timeline, their dating dates back to the Vedic period. The early Cholas, they ruled, they flourished since the Vedic period, and the later Cholas, ruled from 7th century BCE to 6th century CE. The Ganga dynasty ruled from 6th century BCE to 11th century CE. The Hoysalas ruled from 4th century CE to 7th century. And the later Hoysalas also extended their empire and they ruled up to the 15th century. And the warriors were the contemporaries of the Vijayanagara Empire. But these historical datings, you will not come across these historical dates in our history books. There is a difference of around 300 to 1500 years. I would like to introduce you to a scholar named Sri Vedvir Arya. He has been extensively working and researching on the chronological dates of our country. So some 3 years ago, his book, The Chronology of Ancient India, was released by Sri Venkaya Naiduji. And he has been working on the chronological history of every state. And this book will be released very soon, by next year. So according to his book, I have quoted the historical dates. And these datings are based on archaeological evidences, epigraphical evidences, inscriptions, literary evidences, Puranas, and several other sources. So when we speak about historical distortions, if you have a look at Wikipedia and search for the Vedic era, you will come across 1500 BCE to 600 BCE as the Vedic era. If the Vedic era started in 1500 BCE, then when did the Ramayana happen? When did the Mahabharata happen? Because the Ramayana and the Mahabharata took place after the Vedic period. So according to the biblical theory, the creation started at 4004 BCE. So the Western historians, they imposed the historical dates of the world, including Indian historical dates, according to that particular theory. So 4004 BC as the start of creation, and then accordingly they have set the dates. For them, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are mythology. These two epics are not history, according to them. So accordingly, after the Vedic period, they have given the datings of the Mauryas and the Guptas and all. According to our history books, the Maurya, according to distorted historical records, the Mauryan period starts from around 300 BCE. But according to our own inscriptional records, according to our own literary evidences, the Mauryan period flourished around 1600 BCE. That is 3,600 years ago. And then, according to our distorted historical dates, the Gupta period flourished in between 4th century to 6th century CE. But according to our own archaeological evidences and epigraphical records, the Guptas flourished during 365 BCE, starting from 365 BCE. So you can well see a difference of around 300 to 1600 years. And it is such a pity and it is very unfortunate that what the colonial masters imposed the historical dates upon us, and we are still following that, even after 72 plus years of independence. So it is time that we rewrite not only our history, but also the chronological dates. Before I start, I would like to ask a few questions about our warrior ancestors. So have you heard about Raja Nagbhat I? I would like to request you to please raise your hand if you have heard his name. Raja Nagbhat I. Have you heard about Commander Kuili? She is from the southern part of this country. She was a freedom fighter. Have you heard about Raja Prithu? Have you heard about Chain Singh? Kuwar Chain Singh? Have you heard about Rani Naiki Devi? Have you heard about Raja Suhaldev? Two for Suhaldev. Have you heard about Rani Karnavati? Four of our the descendants of our warrior ancestors have raised their hands for Karnavati and two for Suhaldev. So around 90, it is such a shame for us that 99% of us do not know anything about our warrior ancestors. our warrior ancestors who saved our civilization. But if I ask you about who Muhammad Ghori is, who Babur is, who Qutbuddin Aibak is, who Akbar is, who Alauddin Khilji is, who Aurangzeb is, who Robert Clive is, who Lord Curzon is, there are uncountable number of our looters and plunderers. If you ask them, even if you ask them about the chronology of the Mughal rulers, they will be able to tell in detail and they will be able to describe in detail about the rulers. Isn't it a shame for us, and isn't it very unfortunate that we do not know anything about our warrior ancestors? So why should we feel proud of our warrior ancestors, and why should we celebrate their glory? See, we represent a civilization that dates back to thousands of years, several thousands of years. Like, I want to give a few examples regarding this. The Vedic era, according to few literary evidences, the Vedic era dates back to, say, at least 15,000 BCE. And according to our own one Indic Academy member, he is Nilesh Nilkant Oak. He has given the dating of the Mahabharata war as some 7,500 years ago. So there have been many researches about the Mahabharata, some 200 plus researches done by scholars. And according to that, the Mahabharata war took place some 5,000 years to 7,500 years ago. But according to Nilesh Nilkant Oakji, who studied the Mahabharata text in detail, and according to 200 plus astronomical calculations from the Mahabharata, he came to the conclusion that it took place some 7,500 years ago. And before that, the Ramayana took place. So the Vedic era is at least 15,000 years BC, the date line. And then yesterday at our gathering, I told about the painting of Nataraja at the Bhimbetka caves. So at rock shelter number 10 and the Bhimbetka caves premise, there is a painting of Nataraja. The painting has started to fade, and that painting dates back to the Mesolithic era. And the Mesolithic era dates back to around 20,000 years ago. That means 20,000 years ago, our people celebrated Mahadeva. And where is this 4004 BCE theory as the start of creation, and where we have archaeological proofs that people in India worshipped Nataraja some 20,000 years ago. And the paintings and the evidences of human habitation in the Bhimbetka caves premise dates back to from 10,000 years to 1 lakh years. And the Bhimbetka caves spreads across 10 kilometers, and there are around 750 rock shelters. So we represent a civilization that dates back to thousands of years. But why did I not focus more on our ancient history, and why only on our history from the 8th century to 1947? Because during this period, we have been invaded, we have been looted, we have been plundered. The invaders and looters, they tried to destroy our culture. They committed genocide. Lakhs and lakhs of our Hindus Sanatanis were executed by the plunderers. So despite 1,300 years of plunder, invasion, and torture and barbarism, we at present still represent nearly 80% of the population of this country. Isn't that a living proof that our warrior ancestors saved our civilization, because of whom we are here today? So during those 1,300 years, they fought against the plunderers, Islamic plunderers, and then later the British. They won victories, they won battles, and they fought till their last breath. And during their period, they carried forward that legacy of our thousands of years old civilizational identity. And today, together, we are carrying forward that very legacy of our thousands of years old civilizational identity. So isn't that a living proof that because of them we are here today. So we should be proud of our warrior ancestors. They saved our great-great-great-grandparents, because of whom we are here today. So it is a sad truth that our history books do not glorify the warriors of the soil. We have been projected as losers, as defeated, which is false. And only the looters and plunderers and the invaders have been glorified throughout in our history textbooks. So I would like to quote a few more names. All of these names, there are 52 warriors portrayed in saffron swords. So Nagbhatwan, Suhaldev, Raja Prithva, I've already told. Have you heard about Mula Gabharu? I'd like to tell a little bit about her because she was not a warrior, she was not neither a commander nor a ruler. She was the wife of a Ahum commander. So during a war between the Bengal Sultanate led by Turbak Khan, he was an Afghan, and the Ahum army, the battle continued for some 40 days. Initially, the Ahum lost, but later on they won. And one of the inspirations behind the Ahum winning the battle was Mula Gabharu. So her husband, some Barguhai, he was martyred in the battlefield. So when he was martyred, the Ahum commander was martyred, the Ahum army, they were demoralized. They started moving away from the battlefield. And as soon as Mula Gabharu, the wife of the commander, heard this news, she rode a horse with swords in both her hands. She rushed towards the battlefield like goddess Durga. And she started butchering the she rushed towards the battlefield like goddess Durga. And she started butchering the soldiers, the Islamic soldiers, one after one. And she killed many soldiers. And she butchered 2 Afghan lieutenants of that enemy. And then she attained martyrdom. Turbak Khan somehow managed to kill her. But seeing her courage, because she was not trained to be fighting in the battlefield, but seeing her courage, the army got new strength and they fought. And for several days, the battle continued, and ultimately the Ahom army won. So this is such a glorious chapter in our Indian history, but no one knows who Mula Gabharu is. Then Raja Narasimha Deva, he was from Orissa. He built the famous Konark Sun temple. He built this temple after winning 3 victories against the Islamic plunderers. But again, we do not know anything about this warrior from Orissa. Then Rampiari Gurjar. She is one of my most favorite heroines. All of you know about Taimur. On his onward loot and plunder towards Delhi, he looted wealth worth trillions of amount, and he executed many Hindus. He raped our mothers and sisters, and he took around 1 lakh captives by the time he reached Delhi. As soon as he reached Delhi, he executed all the 1 lakh Hindus. And it is said by the Muslim historians that out of the heads of the Hindu peoples executed, a mountain, the hill was created. So hearing about this barbarism of Taimur, the other Hindus were alerted. They held a meeting. And under the commandment of Mahabali Jograj Singh Gurjar, 80,000 people, only some 10% of them were soldiers, rest of them were common people. They all united for a cause to defeat Taimur, to offer resistance. And there was a women wing, which had around 40,000 women. And this women wing was commandeered by Rampiari Gurjar. She was only 20 years old then. And look at the patriotism of the women then. That thought, like, instead of being raped and taken captives by Taimur, let us fight and die in the battlefield. So, in the battles that followed, there 3 battles took place between Taimur and the Hindu forces, and all the 3 battles, Taimur was defeated. So he came up with more than 1 lakh soldiers. And in the last battle that took place in Haridwar, he was so badly wounded that he somehow escaped. And there were some only 2,000 to 3,000 to 5,000 soldiers left with him. And rest of the Islamic army were slaughtered. They were killed by our Hindu army. Even some 40,000 of our Hindu army were martyred in this battle. So that is again a very glorious chapter in our history books, and it is our every right to know about Rampyari Gurjar. Then Hemchandra Vikramaditya. He was also known as Hemu. He ruled Delhi for 1 month. Then Akbar was a minor. He was under, Bairam Khan was the regent, guardian of Akbar then. He was defeated in the second battle of Panipat. He was almost winning the battle. But suddenly a stray arrow hit his eye and he fell. And the Hindu army thought that our king, he fell and he will be taken captive. So they all fled from the battlefield. Otherwise, the history would have been different today. Then Rana Hamir Singh, Kapaya Nayaka. He is also from the south. There are 4 inscriptional records about Kapaya Nayaka winning a battle against the Turkish and re-establishing Hindu supremacy in Warangal. He also helped other kingdoms regain back their kingdoms from the Islamic plunderers. Banda Singh Bahadur. He was inspired by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and he won 17 battles against the Islamic plunderers, and he regained Punjab from the Islamic rulers. Baji Prabhu Deshpande, the Maratha general. Yeah. Most of you must have seen the movie 300. 300, yeah, about the Spartans. Like this movie has immortalized the Spartans. So we have similar examples of valor in our own history, Indian history. One is Baji Prabhu Deshpande. He along with, he led an army of only 300 soldiers, Maratha army, against a 12,000 Adil Shahi army. And the battle took place throughout the day in a pass, in a mountain pass. And by engaging the whole day with the Adil Shahi army, he facilitated Shivaji to escape from there. And then Rani Karnavati, Rana Sanga, then Tongkham Barpatra Guhai, Kelari Chennamma, she's from Karnataka only. Then Naiki Devi, Roypuliani. Roypuliani is also one of my most favorite heroines. She was 84 years old when she encountered against the British. And she was the ruler of a small kingdom in Mizoram. And like she, as long as she was alive, she did not accept the supremacy of the British, and said she did not pay any tax to the British. Though her neighboring kingdoms paid, she was the only one during the time that who did not pay taxes to the British. And for that, the British, they surrounded her kingdom, and she declared war against the British. And before the war was to take place, the British, they deceived him, and that in the middle of the night, they came, attacked her, and took her prisoner. And then she was taken to a prison in Dhaka, Bangladesh, then. And after 1 year, she died. Then Pasalta Khongchera, Pavana Brajabasi. Pavana Brajabasi also commandeered an army of 300 against some thousands of British soldiers in Manipur. Shanti Ghosh. She was only 16 years old when she shot at a British governor, and it made huge headlines and the Britain also. At the age of 16, we can well imagine the level of patriotism and the minds of our own fellow Bharatiyas during that time. So there are three perspectives on Indian history, especially when we speak about history of India from the 8th century till 1947. Then number one is chronicling about the local warriors of the soil. Number two, chronicling about the invaders, because truth should prevail. Number three, chronicling about the atrocities the invaders and looters committed on the local population, on the heritage, etc. Because the invaders, they not only looted the wealth of India, they also destroyed our heritage structures. They destroyed many forts and fortresses. They destroyed thousands of temples, and they broke the idols. They looted the precious stones that were studded on the idols. They raped our mothers and sisters and daughters, and they took many women to their homeland as sex slaves. And the level of atrocities they committed, like I want to give one example of Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni. There are many more examples, just one example from Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni. During one of his expeditions, he looted such vast wealth that he turned Ghazni into a golden empire. Ghazni was then it was a poor city, and with the wealth looted from India, it looked like an Indian city, because every home then had at least 3 to 4 Indian slaves. And with the wealth looted, they built palaces and structures that resembled India. So anyone who visited Ghazni during that time thought that they visited some Indian city. So this is just one example, so you can well imagine the amount of wealth looted by several plunderers over time, from the 8th century till Aurangzeb and later by the British. But what do we read in our history books? Only one perspective has been covered. The rest of the two perspectives have been ignored. And that perspective covered is only the invaders, looters, and plunderers are glorified in the history textbooks. Why did the historians ignore the two perspectives? To show that the invaders are superior, to show the invaders ruled whole of India, but in reality they ruled only parts of India. To show our warrior ancestors were cowards, so we do not draw inspiration from them. To show our ancestors did nothing to save our civilization. Because at times when I post on social media about the glory of our ancestors, they say this is fake. They did nothing to save our civilization. They lost everything. They were losers, they were cowards. But how do we counter them? Because our stories of defeat have been imprinted in their minds since childhood. Because it is compulsory to read history in school textbooks. And school children are like clay. Their thoughts can be molded to a particular ideology by feeding them thoughts of that particular ideology. And anything, any material, any text material that could lead to a nationalistic pride were ignored in the books. So to infuse in us a sense of inferiority complex, to show the invaders civilized us. And not many people say that the British civilized us. Like Sir Sivramji also, Professor Sivramji also said how they tried to project India. Then to demean us and to drift us away from our roots, from our ancestry. To ensure that we don't take pride from our past, especially the last 1300 years. So it is to let every Bharatiya know about our warrior ancestors that I, along with my husband, Sri Yogaditya Singh Rawal, wrote Saffron Swords, compiling stories of valor, stories of resistance, the victories that our ancestors won, the resistance they offered till their last breath. So these are compiled, and these stories of valor are about warriors from across the country, from each and every corner of Bharat. So this is the ancestral historical chronicle of every Bharatiya. About the distortion of history, I have already. So I would like to describe a few warriors. About Nagbhat I. He was a Gurjar Pratihar king. He ruled parts of northern India. And for several years, the Arabs, they looted and plundered India, that defeated many Hindu kings. And then the North Indian and South Indian rulers, then the Rashtrakutas were ruling in South India. The Rashtrakutas and more North Indian and South Indian rulers, they united. And they fought against the Arabs in a final battle that took place on the borders of Rajasthan. And this battle on the Hindu front was led by Nagbhat I. He was the Gurjar Pratihar king. And the Arabs were led by Emir Junaid, the governor of Sindh. And in this battle, the Arabs were so badly defeated that they never thought of conquering, invading India for the next 100 years, 100 plus years. And one Persian historian has described that the Arab forces were scattered like hay. So you can well imagine how badly defeated the Arab forces were. So the Islamic rule, it started somewhere around the 10th century, 11th century. It could have started from the 8th century had the rulers from the north and the south not united and offered resistance. So we are also taught in our history books that our rulers did not unite. The Hindu kings and queens did not unite, but that is again wrongly projected. This is one example. And there are many more examples of unity amongst the rulers who fought unitedly and won battles. Then this is about Kuili. Do you know about Rani Velu Nachiyar? Yeah. She is the first queen in the history of India to win a battle against the British. And this is also a very important aspect in history. But this is not described in history textbooks. Now, how did she win this battle? Because of the sacrifice by Kuili. Kuili was the commander of her women army. So, I want to tell a background story of Kuili. Rani Velu Nachiyar, she ruled Sivagangai of Tamil Nadu. And during a battle between combined forces of the Nawab and the British against the ruler of Sivagangai, the ruler of the Tamil kingdom, he was martyred. And his queen, Velu Nachiyar, along with her 6-year-old daughter, they fled from the kingdom because the British would capture them and they would execute them or they would put them up in prison. So they fled. Velu Nachiyar's only motive was to gather an army and then fight a war against the British later and regain back Sivagangai from the British. So it took 8 years for her to gather an army, to gather a big army. And she marched towards Sivagangai. She won 2 initial battles. But at the final battle at Sivagangai, she got the news that the British had enough ammunition in the Raja Rajeswari temple. And the temples, they used to use the temple as a storehouse of ammunitions during those times. And the devotees were not allowed to worship. It was on Vijayadashami day that only women devotees were allowed to worship in the temple. And it was the year 1780. So they were camping away from Sivagangai. They camped away from Sivagangai, Velu Nachiyar along with her army. Kuili happened to notice few women devotees walking towards Sivagangai. She asked them where they were heading to. And they said about the Raja Rajeswari temple and about the ammunitions stored there and that they were allowed to worship only on Vijayadashami day. And it was a Vijayadashami. Immediately Kuili made a plan. They dressed, the women army, they dressed up as simple devotees and they took weapons hidden under the saris, under their dresses, and they entered the temple. The British, they were very clever. they could detect that something was fishy. And they began shooting at the army of Velunachir. And coolly she rushed towards the place where the diya was lit. Diya of the deity was lit. And there was a huge pot of ghee. She rushed there. By the time she rushed there, the British already shot her twice and she was badly injured. Yet she poured the ghee over herself. Taking the big diya, she rushed towards the ammunition store that was located nearby. And as soon as she entered, she lit the diya on herself and she burst in flames. And exploded. And all the ammunition stored there was destroyed. This was the sacrifice that Kuili gave for the freedom of the motherland. So this is a very, very inspiring story, and it will inspire our women, but very sad to say again that we don't get to hear or read about such tales of valor in our history books. So this is about Bakhtiyar Khilji. It is in 1206 AD, CE. And Raja Prithu. Raja Prithu was the ruler of Kamrupa. Kamrupa was known, today's Assam was known as Kamrupa. And most of the states were known together as Kamrupa. Again, this is a very glorious chapter in history. We all know who Bakhtiyar Khilji was. We all know about Nalanda University. It is said Nalanda University was set up in around the 4th century BC by a Gupta king. But as I said a little earlier, that our historical dates have been distorted by the West. And according to our own records, this Nalanda University dates back to around 200 to 300 BCE. So, and students from across the world, they came and studied here. So at the time when Bakhtiyar Khilji attacked Nalanda University, there were 2,000 teachers and 10,000 students. And there were 3 multi-story libraries. This is according to Tibetan sources, according to Tibetan records, but because during those times, the Tibetans came and studied here, and they have written accounts about the university libraries in their own records. And these 3 multi-story libraries accommodated lakhs of manuscripts. And Bakhtiyar Khilji, he attacked the university, he executed all the teachers and students. Somehow, a few of them managed to escape. And he set fire to all the multi-story libraries. According to an account by Minhaj Siraj, a Persian historian, in his book Tabakat-e-Nasiri, the libraries burned for more than 3 months. So you can well imagine the vast loss of our knowledge heritage. And G.D. Bakshiji, in one of his speeches, said, like the Arthasastra is available in bits and parts, it is not available in full. So maybe many such of our ancient texts were destroyed in the fire in Nalanda University. So he also destroyed the Vikramshila University. And this university also saw a similar fate. And besides that, he looted wealth, he executed the Hindus, he converted many Hindus to Islam by force, he raped many of our women and he took many of our women as sex slaves. And what not he did. The list of atrocities he did upon the Indians and the heritage structures is countless. So Raja Prithu, he defeated Bakhtiyar Khilji. Now this is a very, very important chapter in our history books, but no one knows who Raja Prithu is. And do you know, Raja Prithu wounded Bakhtiyar Khilji so badly that after this failed expedition, Bakhtiyar Khilji could no longer commit any plunders or loots, or he could not commit any crimes that he did earlier. And in a few years, he died, bedridden. So again, this is again very unfortunate that we do not know about him. Nike Devi. Again, about Raja Prithu, when I posted snippets before the release of the book, I posted short snippets with images about our warrior ancestors in social media, especially on Facebook. Many of them, who Raja Prithu is, this is a fake story. She created this fake story and she tried to project it amongst us. Then because I had to counter with evidences, because history is based on evidences and facts. Then the Kanai Varasi rock inscription in Kamrupa has details, has records about this victory by Prithu against Bakhtiyar Khilji. So the inscription cannot be wrong. Even if the literary evidences, if they counter and say that this is wrong, it cannot be wrong. Inscriptions cannot be wrong. Nike Devi. We all know about Muhammad Ghori and the 17 wars that took place between Muhammad Ghori and Prithviraj Chauhan. And in the 17th battle, Prithviraj Chauhan lost. Every time Muhammad Ghori was defeated, Prithviraj Chauhan used to forgive him, because Hindu warriors always followed rules of dharma in warfare. If any of the enemy asked for pardon, they easily pardoned. So here is this Chalukyan queen from Gujarat. She defeated Muhammad Ghori in battle. There is a long story behind this. You can, because if I continue telling her about completely in detail, then it will go on for hours and hours. So I would like to request you to read about her and Saffron Swords. So she defeated Muhammad Ghori. And Muhammad Ghori was so badly defeated that he never ever dared or thought of attacking Gujarat again. And he invaded other parts of India. Chain Singh. He was a Raj Kuvar from a kingdom called Narsinghar in the Malwa region of Madhya Pradesh. So he was the prince. We all know about the 1857 War of Independence. And before that also there were several wars of independence, and one of the most notable wars was the War of 1824. Many rulers revolted against the British. And the Prince Chain Singh of Narsinghar, he, along with neighboring princes and rulers, they held a meeting and they decided to revolt against the British. The chief minister of Narsinghar, you see the traitors were there and traitors are there today too. The chief minister of Narsinghar, he leaked the information of the British. British came to know about this, and Kuwar Chain Singh, he was also very clever. He kept spies, like who leaked information to the British and all. He came to know. Immediately he ordered the execution of the chief minister. And similarly, another minister also leaked information about about the upcoming revolt to the British. He was executed too. And the families of the two ministers approached the British. And the British only look for such opportunities to interfere into the affairs of the rulers. And then the British, they, at their camp in Sehor, it is a neighboring place of Narsinghar, they summoned the king of Narsinghar. The king sent his son, Kuwar Chain Singh. Now Chain Singh, he did not go alone. He took along 50 Rajputs along with him, all armed. And he had a pet dog called Sheru. We'll all know about Chetak, Rana Pratap's Chetak, how he saved Rana Pratap's life. And here is this dog called Sheru. So he was there in front. The British officer then was called Maddock. So when he approached Maddock was surprised to see him. Like he carried 2 swords on his waist. His waist was adorned with 2 swords. Then he asked in curiosity, how come I have seen most of the soldiers or the coureurs and the rulers carrying only one sword? Why are you carrying two swords? Then he boldly replied, one sword is to cut the heads of traitors in this part of our motherland. And the next sword is to cut the heads of the British who try to interfere into the affairs of our kingdom. And he was taken aback because he did not expect such a reply, such a blunt reply. He immediately said, I want to see the sword that is meant for cutting the heads of the British officers, the British. He immediately took out the sword and gave it to him. Have a look. And because he was embarrassed, Maddox was embarrassed and he wanted to take a revenge then and there only. And he was looking for an opportunity to strike with the sword, to strike Chain Singh. But even Chain Singh fixed his eyes on him so that he could not strike. Then in a few seconds, Maddox again asked him, can I have a look at the other sword? Chain Singh replied, the waist of a warrior of a Rajput warrior is never kept blank. It will always carry a sword. So I cannot give you the other sword. When he replied this, he tried to strike at him. By the time he picked up the sword, and because he was about to, Chain Singh was about to take out the sword, by that time Sheru attacked him, tried to save his master. And he fell back, and the sword fell on the ground. And then Sheru was after him, and he fled from there. And he also alerted the other British soldiers stationed there to fight against the 50 Rajputs led by Kuwar Chain Singh. And then the fierce battle started. And there is a park at Sehor in Madhya Pradesh, and it is samadhis of the warriors who were martyred in that encounter. So the battle, almost all the 50 soldiers were killed. And Chain Singh, he reached the park fighting, and he was also martyred. And even Sheru could injure so many British soldiers before he was martyred too. So this is the story of Chain Singh. It is such a valorous story. And traitors, about traitors, we should draw examples from him. There should be no place for traitors in the country. They will ruin the country. This is about Raja Suhaldev. There are two very famous dargahs in India. One is the dargah of Moinuddin Chishti in Ajmer. We all know about this. There is another dargah in Bahrain. And this dargah is dedicated to Salar Masood, Ghazi Salar Masood. He won the title of Ghazi because he was killed in the battlefield. And this battle took place between him and a confederation of Indian rulers. Again, this unity of Indian rulers against Salar Masood. Salar Masood was the nephew of Mahmud of Ghazni. When Mahmud of Ghazni destroyed our Somnath temple in Gujarat, he was there with him. So Mahmud of Ghazni, he did not rule India, but he kept his slaves here to rule Bharat, parts of the country which he plundered, which he conquered. So again, I would not go back to the details. A fierce battle was to take place in Bahrain. That Salar Masood came to know about the strength of the Hindu army because several kings united to fight against Salar Masood. So he hatched a plan. Like Mathura was famous for cows, Bahrain, it was also famous for cows. So he caught hold of hundreds of cows so that he could use those cows in the battlefield the next day. And they planned like they will set the cows free, set free the cows in the battlefield. And because they will not fight back, they will not harm the cows, and they will go back. And once they go back, they will attack from the behind and then conquer that kingdom. Then Shuhaldev came to know about this plan. And just some 1 or 2 hours before the battle was to take place, he set free all the cows. And in the battle that ensued, Suhaldev won the battle, and Salar Masood was killed. He was killed by Suhaldev. Again, there is a lot of controversy regarding Suhaldev, because all of our secular historians, the intellectuals, they say that Suhaldev is a mythical character. He did not exist. But 2 Muslim records, they prove that Suhaldev did rule. And there was a British archaeologist who in his writings have described about Suhaldev and his predecessors. So it has already been proven, but still our own historians that don't believe in the story of Suhaldev. Then about Rani Karnavati, she is also known as the Nakkati Rani. She defeated, again I'll shorten it, she defeated Shah Jahan's forces. The Shah Jahan's forces, they wanted to annex Garhwal into the Mughal Empire. And Shah Jahan sent a huge army. The Garhwali forces led by Karnavati, they defeated the Mughal army, and they cut the noses of the surviving Mughal soldiers. And that's why from that day onwards, she was known as the Nakkati Rani. And Shah Jahan was so, he was so taken aback that he never thought of sending his army again to Garhwal. So why, so if I describe all of the tales of valor, it will go on and on 2-3 days, it will go on and on if I describe in detail. So now why the title of the book, Saffron Swords? Saffron symbolizes valor, sacrifice. Saffron symbolizes the essence of our civilizational identity, our thousands of years old civilizational identity. Saffron adorns our national flag. Saffron is also the color our warrior ancestors and our warrior soldiers, they applied tilak of saffron and fought against the Islamic plunderers and against the British in the battlefield, shouting slogans of Har Har Mahadev and more slogans. So this is, again, when we speak about yagyas, the rishis, the yajnas they performed, the color of a fire is again saffron. So it is a part of our existence. It is a part of our civilizational identity. But many people, they complained, why this title of saffron and the book? So when I published short snippets of the warriors, then most of the readers, they wrote in the comments while sharing, they said, ignore the word saffron and enjoy reading the historical snippet. So Saffron Swords has been criticized very badly. Many of them say that I am a paid agent of the BJP. I have been paid profusely by the BJP to create fake history and to influence the present generation. And I have been also called as Bhakt. Now I thanked everyone who called me Bhakt, because I add a prefix to that. Desh Bhakt, Vishnu Bhakt, Shiva Bhakt. There are so many prefixes that you can add in the Bhakt. So we should all be proud and we should thank the people who tag us with this label. Then about the inspiration, why I wrote this book and about our warrior ancestors. Here comes the sanskara, the sanskara that we received since our childhood. So we grew, we are 5 sisters and 1 brother, we are 6 siblings. We grew up listening to stories from the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and our other Hindu scriptures, and about the tales of valor of our warrior ancestors, about our freedom fighters from our father. He still narrates these stories today, every day. Whenever he is in the village, neighbors gather around him and he still narrates these stories. So we grew up listening to all these tales of valor. And then I started my... I would also like to tell about one incident. Some 12 to 13 years back, I was approached by a few communists from Kolkata. They came with a set of books on Lenin and Marxism and on the ideologies of Marxism. And they tried to influence me over coffee for some 2 hours on the philosophy of Marxism. And they gave me an offer to write for them. You know how strong the leftist lobby is, the communist lobby is. And I felt like it is because they used to approach such people who can write for them, and in social media and all, in web portals and all, in the form of articles and in the newspapers. And they agreed, they told me they would pay handsomely. So during those times on freelance work, I charged around 30 paisa to 80 paisa per word, depending on the text that I got. Today it is some 3 rupees to 5 rupees per word you get for quality content. During that time, they offered me 5 rupee per word. And when I was not convinced, they gave me the set of books and they left, giving their phone numbers and names. And then a few years back, when I was cleaning the storeroom, I came across these books, and I posted those books on social media as well. I have a post on that. So I am also a convent educated. Now, it is the sanskara that we receive since our childhood that keeps us connected to our roots. And no ideology can take us over if our sanskara is strong. So why read true history? Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican-born political leader and social activist, has rightly said, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Now, we are like a tree without roots because we are denied history about our own roots in our history textbooks. We do not know anything about our ancient history, ancient heritage. We do not know anything about our ancestors. So we are like a tree without roots. So it is time, there is still time. Since the last 72 years, we have been fed with the distorted historical facts. We have been fed with information about our plunderers and looters. Now it is time we can change that one-sided narrative. And it can happen with the efforts, with the collective efforts of the common citizens of the country. We cannot wait for the government to do. Because the government, if they try to change the history textbooks, it may take several years or it may not change also. We never know. So through these books or by spreading awareness, now I'm interacting with you, then you can narrate about this to 10 more people. They will narrate about this to 10 more people, and this way we can spread awareness. And I would also like to appeal to ask the people around you to buy the book Saffron Swords. So if it reaches one home, then it will educate 10 people at least. And those 10 people will again speak about the glory of our own ancestors to more people. And that way the message can spread. Because it is a collective effort. I single-handedly cannot do that. Like the RSS, the VHP, the Rashtriya Sevika Samiti, and there are so many Hindu organizations who have been working selflessly, collectively, for this cause. And I would like to seek their support as well for this. So, research on Saffron Swords. This Saffron Swords is based on 10 plus years of research. I, along with my husband, Yogaditya Singh Rawal, we specially have a Mahindra Thar 4x4 Jeep with us. I and my husband used to drive in turns. We even drove 21 hours at a stretch and we reached Maharashtra. And we take village roads so that and village roads have so many unknown examples, living examples, structural examples of history, forts and fortresses, temples, ancient and medieval era temples. So we used to meet the local people whose ancestors served the royal lineage. Then we used to collect the history from them. And we also listened to folklores, historical folklores. Then we used to read research papers and then a lot of books by Britishers as well as Persian Muslim historians, besides our own historians. Then we used to study inscriptions. There are many inscriptional records that also tell us about our warrior ancestors. So these are, based on all of this research, this book is based. And this is only the first volume. As long as we breathe, myself and my husband will continue our research, and we shall continue to write about our warrior ancestors. So there will be many, many more volumes of Saffron Swords. And I would not want to give my introduction again because Nitinji has told enough about me. So I would like to thank everyone, all our dharmic warriors here and our fellow Bharatvasis to have taken out precious time from their busy schedule to be here at this event. So I would like to thank everyone for being here. Vande Mataram, Jai Hind.
You have done a great service to the nation. I have two questions. I need your views on this. One is that we are a civilization of 5,000 years plus. So we would have had a great deal of wisdom. How is it that during those years, 1,000 years, we did not have the vision and wisdom to see the danger that was coming from the Islamic warriors, also subsequently from the Christians and others who came from the Western world? That is question number one. Secondly, just to add to the question number one, most of the time these Islamic warriors used our own people, Hindus, to fight against other Hindus. For example, Man Singh fought all the wars for Akbar. The second question is that while we say that today 85% of the population in India comprises of Hindus, the fact of the matter that we should not forget is that our ancestors still live in Pakistan and Bangladesh as converted Muslims. So that is about 35 crores there, 20 crores here, so 55 crores. In one sense, nearly 50% of Hindus have been already converted to Muslims. So what is your view on how do we take care to ensure that we don't make such mistakes all over again? Just one more point I want to add. Why I say that we should take care is because even all that you told is before 1947, but even in the post-independence, 1990, 20th of January, 5 lakh Hindus had to leave Kashmir and come over to Jammu and other places. It is now 30 years, they have not gone back to their place, and we don't seem to have done anything to resurrect their citizenship. Thank you very much.
Yeah. From the time of Harshavardhana, the warrior spirit, like every kingdom used to have a strong army and the boundaries, as well as they maintained a strong army. They maintained a strong infrastructure. But after Harshavardhana, it started to decline, and the warrior spirit also started to decline. Only those kingdoms that had a strong army base and they upgraded their infrastructure, they survived. Regarding this, I would like to quote Rani Bhavasankari. It is not there in the Saffron Swords. I have already researched on her to be included in the upcoming volume. Rani Bhavasankari of Bengal. She was the ruler of a small kingdom in Bengal. Even Akbar did not interfere into her sovereignty. She was so powerful. She recruited her army at all the corners of her kingdom, and she made it compulsory that there should be one person from every family that should be recruited in the army. She made it compulsory. And because of that, she defeated the Pathans thrice. Because of her strong army background and the upgraded infrastructure, army military infrastructure. And likewise, there were several kings who similarly, they maintained the army base as well as the infrastructure. And regarding the warrior spirit, as I told you, it started to decline. Again, Hindu warriors always followed rules of dharma in warfare. They never pillaged land. They always pardoned the enemy if they sought pardon. And they never destroyed heritage structures or enemy lands. And they took care of the injured at the end of the day, whether the injured is from the enemy side. And warfare took place in between morning and evening. And they followed all these rules of dharma. But suddenly the Muslim plunderers, they followed exactly opposite the rules of dharma followed by the Indian rulers. So they were taken aback. So they used to suddenly attack in the middle of the night. And they used to follow certain plans of treachery and deceit. Like one example I told about Raja Suhaldev. And then, even about Prithviraj Chauhan, I told, there were 17 battles between Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Ghori. Now, had Prithviraj Chauhan been strict in not pardoning Muhammad Ghori, then Islamic rule would not have started in India. It was because of that big defeat in that battle that Islamic rule started firmly on the Indian soil. So because it was, still today we are following the rules of dharma, we are following the ideals of non-violence of Gandhi. So we should rise. And I would like to tell about Sanatan Shastra Vidya. It is a technique, warfare technique based on our ancient warfare. And it started from Shiva, Parvati, Kali, and the only living guru of this tradition, warfare tradition, is Guru Nidar Singh. Guru Nidar Singh, he stays in Germany and also in Canada. So he used to come once in every 3 months. There is a video in Srijan Foundation about Guru Nidar Singh. The different warfare tactics that he teaches to his students. Even my husband is also a learner and practitioner of Sanatan Shastra Vidya. So if you are trained in Sanatan Shastra Vidya, even without arms, you can defend your family, you can defend your neighbors. I would like to request the RSS, VHP, and all our Hindu organizations to adopt such practices. They should train, because we should all get trained. You never know what will happen in the future. We might get attacked, and again the same history will repeat. So even without using the weapons that the soldiers use, we can defend ourselves. So I would like to give one example. Like soldiers in earlier times, they walked hundreds of kilometers without getting fatigued, and they won battles and they came back. How could this happen? Because of the technique, Sanatan Shastra Vidya technique. And I noticed this technique on my husband. Once we were supposed to meet a family friend, and because of the traffic, we could not reach on time. And they were about to leave. They already booked a Ola. And while they were at the gate at my sister's place, we reached. And he was driving. And he just dropped me there, and he went to park his car. And the parking is quite far from there. Parking was quite far from there. And he could not park somewhere nearby because it is a congested road. And the Ola could wait only for 5 minutes. And in 2 minutes, he parked his car and he was there. Then I was surprised, how did this happen? Then he said, I applied the technique of Sanatan Shastra Vidya. So this was how soldiers walked hundreds of kilometers, and they won, and without getting fatigued, and they won battles. So we should be alert, we should be ready, we should not follow, we should follow the rules of dharma, but we should also know how to protect our dharma, how to protect ourselves, how to defend ourselves when such situations arise. And about traitors, there were traitors before, there are traitors today also. And about traitors, I told one example about Chain Singh. If the traitors are killed then and there, then the problem would be solved then and there. But our own people, they welcome the traitors. They welcomed the traitors earlier, and they're welcomed even today also. There are so many examples. I hope I answered your.
Yes, you have. Just one point is that, see, Omar Gaddafi of Libya said that Islam will rule the world no more by sword, but by sheer numbers. And they're doing it in the Western world. The migration has taken place. And nearly in six European countries, their population is already around 20%, and they're causing havoc there. So
Yes, even Hindus are
we have to
minor.
be careful about that also.
Yes, yes.
Because our productivity is something like 1.5 or something like that per
The population
parents.
jihad.
And our
that they have
population will get outnumbered
done.
in another 50 years, 60 years or
Yes,
something like
yes.
that. Okay.
Even today, Hindus are minority in 8 states of India. And soon Assam and Bengal will follow. Then the Hindus will be minority in 10 states very soon. So isn't this an alarming situation? So we, the common citizens, should rise and get ready to defend ourselves. That is the thing. But social media is helping. There is a renaissance happening amongst the Bharatiyas because of social media since the last 5 years. And because of social media, I'm connected to many of our dharmic warriors here. But we should be working on the ground level. Just delivering lectures or just writing something on social media and all, we should also work on the ground level. And there are so many of our organizations, Hindu organizations, they should also come forward and help. And I would like to quote another example about the Sanatan Sastra Vidya. All of us know about, you must have seen a painting of Rana Pratap cutting Behlol Khan into 2 halves, including his armor, the horse, and the person himself, Behlol Khan. How with this sword, with just one strike, he could do that? That was again a technique of Sanatan Sastra Vidya. Without using that technique, no one could do that. This is such a powerful Vidya. Because the Guru Nidarsing, when he is an old person, once he is gone, then this Vidya will, not everyone has that, has learned that Vidya fully. My husband is learning, he is also a practitioner, but he says it will take years to learn. So people in large numbers should learn. But sadly, there are only few people who are learning this technique. And even those people who come to learn, and this Vidya is delivered for free. And those who come to learn, they again, during the 2 hours of the session, they will check their mobiles and they will talk on the mobile, and then they'll, just 10 minutes they will give to Vidya, and the rest they will just. So this is the mindset. So our mindset has to change.
Thank you, madam. Just allow me to say one more thing. See, the first coronation of a Muslim king in Kashmir took place in 17th century. Before that, we had our ancestors, the Hindu ancestors, for nearly 4,000 years plus. So it was all 100% Hindu population till then. And today, it is 100% Muslim population.
Yes.
So I think we have to learn some lessons out of that, and we need to be careful.
Yes. But we are not learning now. There should be.
Thank you for this wonderful book, madam. First of all, I want to congratulate you. Another thing, From the bottom of my heart, I thank you by quoting you as the Saffron Bhakta instead of Shiv Bhakta or Vishnu Bhakta. I quote you as a Saffron Bhakta
Thank you so much.
primarily. Another thing I would suggest you that if you open a WhatsApp group of like-minded people, so are really patriots, so it will be easier for you to collect the data and all from different parts of India and all. And if you open a Facebook page like that,
We have a group on history, Indian history, real truth on Facebook. We have over 1 lakh members.
okay,
There are many archaeological, historical researches and events are shared in that platform. Indian history, real truth. This was started by a person called Ravi Kumar Pillai.
okay,
He has also researched a lot on our history. And Sri Vedvir Arya, whom I quoted, who has been researching on our chronological aspect of history, he is also one of the admins in that group. And if you join the group, and you'll come across a lot of information
okay.
about our heritage and history.
And also one thing, another sir was speaking about how Hinduism is existed in all parts of
Yes,
planet.
yes.
So in regard with that, I want to tell something, madam. Due to continental drift, the whole part of which was one region in this planet, due to continental drift, it actually cut into pieces. So if you quote these things when you be having a speech and all, due to the continental drift, many places were shattered into small pieces or small continents like that, and then new civilizations flourished. So in that time when the continental drift was not happened, at that time maybe Sanatana Dharma would have been
Yeah,
prevailed in each and every part
yeah,
of
you're
the world.
perfectly right. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use these things while you speak in other parts of India or other parts of abroad, I think, ma'am. This
Yeah.
is just my suggestion.
Yes, yes.
Thank
We'll
you,
include
ma'am.
that also.
Yeah, and also I wanted to know one thing, ma'am. Have you quoted about Rani Abbaka in your?
Already researched. Her tale of valor will be included in the upcoming.
Thank
There
you,
are so many warriors, hundreds
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
thousands of our warriors.
Yeah.
All of them will be included. As I tell, as long as I breathe, I will continue to write.
Okay, madam.
And
I will be very grateful to you if you include our warriors from Karnataka. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. And as Sivaram ji suggested, I will also write on the warriors pertaining to every state. I'll compile stories in the future.
Here, everybody believes now that they don't know anything about Indian history and Indian warriors. And she has made us humbled by telling us the story of lot of Indian warriors. We will definitely read and take inspiration from your book, ma'am. And now I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Shivram Manvalli, who had accepted to be the chief guest and has given us his wise words. Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity to thank Shripati ji to grace this occasion. In fact, he had accepted our invitation at the last minute and obliged. Thank you very much, sir. I now thank Srimati Chaya Nanjappa Rajappa, who has taken a lot of pain and helped us in this event and has also graced the occasion. Thank you, ma'am. I also thank Srimati Manoshi Sinha Raval to have come all the way from Delhi and be with us on this occasion. In fact, we would not have been here together if not for your work. Thank you very much, ma'am. Please do come to Mysore once again. I would also like to thank Institute of Engineers who has provided us this venue and time and again and obliged us for most of our events. I would like to thank our friends from the press, who has also covered most of our events. Our thanks to the photograph and videographers, sound systems from Hebar Associates and others who have helped us directly or indirectly to make this event a success. My special thanks to Harikiran Vadlamaniji from Indic Academy, who has made this possible to conduct such events. Through his vision and guidance, it is possible to arrange such programs. Last but not the least, our August audience, without which this would not have been a success. Please do come to all our events and help us in conducting more such events. Thank you. Thank you, one and all. Yeah.